Okay, good evening. We are nearly there. After Mr. So what do we mean here? So the e-infrastructure common marketplace came quite naturally after all the work we've been doing these last 3 years with all what we've learned. And we realized that all what we've done for cloud could be extended to a bigger domain. So our vision is that this e-infrastructure common marketplace will provide access to worldwide and world-class resources through a dynamic and sustainable marketplace. That it will be built on public, on commercial assets, and will cover the entire scientific workflow. It will offer the broadest range of services, ensure use of open standard and interoperability of service providers while adhering to European policy norms and requirements. So there is a lot that come from the Helix Nebula, and now we want to extend this to a bigger, to ensure, because all the scientists, all the researchers today are not using cloud, or not only using cloud. And these other computing needs they have has to be taken into account, and we would like to bring them into the same marketplace environment. So when we say we want to establish an e-infrastructure commons marketplace, what do we mean? What do we mean by e-infrastructure? It means altogether generic domain and community-specific services. What do we mean by commons? We mean that it should be open, but governed to protect demand and supply-side actors. And what do we mean with marketplace? The question was asked today sometime. It's a pay-for-use mechanism for public and private sector suppliers with a market-driven, you go on the marketplace, you're good, you remain, you're bad, you're kicked out by the market forces, okay? So how do we want to do this? There is at least 3 main steps that we have to pass. The first one would be to federate, like we have been doing with Helix Nebula, to federate existing e-infrastructure services that encompass, as I said, generic domain and community-specific services within a common ecosystem. Then we have to implement a pay-for-use mechanism for public and private sector suppliers to ensure sustainability of the marketplace. And this means that the way science is funded today has to change, because currently in most of these big scientific projects, it includes the IT infrastructure that you need to run your project. And the idea was, say, instead of every time including in this project the infrastructure needed, why don't we use the existing infrastructure and give the credit to the project, to the scientific project, to use this existing infrastructure? So this means a change in the funding mechanism, but also to put an incentive scheme to attract this user, the funding bodies, and the providers on the marketplace. Finally, we have to define a governance structure that engages demand and supply-side actors, that foster growth and innovation in line with the EU policy and regulation. Here again, we've been doing quite some work within Helix Nebula. We've made good progress. What we see being key here is to ensure that both sides, the research and the industry, are equally represented in the governance. We also want that there is a full independence on the brokerage function, and the brokerage can be a competitive place also. Why shouldn't it be? So governance should take into account all these aspects. Who would be the stakeholders there? We have the users. Okay, these will be the consumer of the research services. They are bringing intelligence, not meaning that the others do not, but bringing intelligence on the marketplace. We'll have the data providers, the funding agencies, so those are funding the research services, and suppliers that will be both industry and public sector, but in a level playing field. And finally, why do we want to do it? Because we think there will be some very positive impact both on the research side and on the European industry side. First one will be that the researcher will drive the evolution of services for their research need, okay, because they will They will push industry to develop, like we've been doing within Helix Nebula, to drive them into the direction that they will serve our needs. The funding agency will benefit from the market forces to establish volume and price, and they will see where the money goes and how it is used. And we will create this value-adding chain where the service provider will be able to get revenues and make sustainable services, and finally to have an ecosystem that benefits also downstream industry and science, like we've seen in this ESA pilot case. So if we want to picture this, what do we want to do? We want to have some services that are delivered on an e-common infrastructure common marketplace. So cloud is part of it, but it's not only cloud. It should include also high-performance computing, grid, volunteer computing, all kind of computing that could be useful in the domain of science. All kind of intellectual property tools and value-adding tools, data information network. So all this is a service that is delivered to the researcher. These are the service consumers, okay, the Aeroforum, but also the long tail and the S3 would benefit from this infrastructure. On the left side, you have everything that is related to governance, so the representation of the stakeholders and the implementation of standards. And on the right side, you have the knowledge sharing, which is going to work in both sense. When researcher would need something that does not exist on the marketplace and has, they could see that there is some industry would be willing to partner with them to help the development of such a services, then it will be exactly like one of these flagships we've been running these last years, would be a kind of proof of concept between some researchers and some industry. This will be tested, and then when it becomes a service, then it will go as any other services on the marketplace with its own business model. On the other way around, you may have industry that is willing to develop something and will want to partner with research to ensure that the way they develop the service will be useful also for them. So, well, basically this is all what I wanted to say to finish the day, and thank you very much.
All right. So you might be suffering from a bit of PowerPoint poisoning by now, but do you have any final questions? First of all, for Maryline. Yep.
Well, Maryline, the people involved in this, is there a missing piece here, or am I just not seeing it? I mean, on one of your slides, you said what researchers are good at. One of the things researchers are good at is solving commercial problems as well. And there doesn't seem to be shell oil on that picture.
It's, sorry,
shell oil or you know, big commercial doesn't seem to be there.
Where do you don't see big commercial? What do you mean? They are here.
But aren't they also up there?
Well, you can. If you use the research community that is working in industry, yes, they are also upstairs, up here. This is the researcher everywhere, from the public domain or industry, okay, that will use the marketplace. And these are the service providers that can also be, we could also be service provider for some software we've developed and we've put on the marketplace. So everybody can be everywhere at any point in time, depending its role at this very moment on the marketplace. So you just do not have just one hat. ESA is a data provider, is a user, is also a software provider if we have putting on the platform some tools we've developed.
Wolfgang's proposal or presentation, the guy showed the broken building in Rome. If I was the guy that was in charge of broken buildings in Rome, I would want to pay for that right away to find out where I was in trouble. So I might not be a researcher, but I might be willing to take advantage of some smart researchers, some ESA data, and some clever tools to make my job a whole lot easier.
Yeah, so you go on the marketplace. On the marketplace, you will find the data you may need, you will have the network, you will have the community that can bring, and then you make a product that you sell. Okay, it's very difficult to explain everything on one chart. So I can understand that it does not cover all what, but I mean, it's the same, it's an extension of ELIX-Nebula. Okay, in the sense that it's not just for cloud computing, it's for covering the full scientific workflow. But the principles are the same.
Yeah, I just had one quick question. Obviously, what really differentiates this project is obviously the source data. You know, the data, input data that's coming in from all these agencies. Once you have this fully in place, is that going to be the exclusive way to distribute that data sources from these organizations, or will there still be the legacy way of providing that data source to the interested parties?
Well, if we want, I mean, as I said, it's not only cloud, so you don't force anybody to go on the cloud, and this is why we have to have this scheme, because there are some researchers that will never put their data on the cloud, okay? But they may accept to be federated and be part of the marketplace for some users that can come on their own premises and use the data. So they are not on the cloud, they are in another model, but they are still accessible through the marketplace. But I mean, yeah, people will come, as I said. I mean, you have to have an interest to go on the marketplace. If you have nothing to buy, you don't go shopping, okay? But if you have something to buy, then you may look at, where is the best place to get what I want? And then you see, if this is a valid option, then you may choose this one. If it's not a valid option, then you may go your traditional way.
Okay. I wish you could tell my kids and wives they don't need to go shopping if they have nothing to buy. Any other questions? No? Okay, well, I'd just like to thank Maryline and, of course, all of the speakers who've been part of today, and also all the people in the background who've been making it all happen almost seamlessly, including the technical support, the logistics, Rashida, Christina, and the other people here as well. And thank you very much for being an interactive audience and asking lots of very useful and interesting questions. It gives us a lot of feedback, which we can help to improve this model in the future. And I'd just like to highlight one point that's been said all the way through the day. It's open. Right? It's not a closed shop. It's open. We're looking how we can expand it in the future in terms of suppliers, services, and users. And so it's open for business. Right? Thank you very much. Okay.